Hi folks, CodeTutor here and my name is Anil Deshpande. Welcome to another video on unit testing in Android, and in previous video we understood how to do the testing of RoomDB using a simulation framework of Robolectric. In this video our focus will now shift towards RoomDB instrumented way of testing the database. Without much further ado, let's get into a demo. So first thing that you will have to ensure is that you have added the appropriate dependencies in the build Gradle file. So let me show you the build Gradle file here. If you go to the applications build Gradle file, we have already put certain dependencies here. The one that is relevant is these two, that is room testing dependencies. And of course you should have room so that you have a room database implemented. That we already have done it. So if you just go to the main source code here, we already have the room database, app database, converters, country room DAO, all that is already implemented. So now it is just a matter of writing test cases. And in the previous video, we had written our test cases here in the test folder, that is country room DAO Robolectric test, and this was the in-memory test. But this time when we are going to write the test cases, it is an instrumented test cases. When I say the instrumented test cases, it means it needs a real device or an emulator to run its test cases. So to do that, we can't write it under the test folder, we will have to write it under the Android test. And if you just expand on that, you see that there is already an example instrumented test that gets inserted by default. That's okay, we don't need that. But here, this is the place where we would be writing our instrumented test cases. So once again, it's the same drill. You create a class which will behave as a test class. So let me create a new Kotlin class, country DAO instrumented test. And here, once again, you have to add an annotation, run with Android JUnit for class. And once again, while testing, I want to actually run it on the main thread so that I can test them in the sync manner. You will use get rule val instant rule is equal to instant task executor rule. We have done this previously also, so this should not come as a surprise. And then I need to create app database and country DAO. So let me create two late init variables. One is app database and another one is country DAO. And then once again we have to write the before, and in this we write a function setup. First thing we have to do is get a context, application provider dot get application context, and then you have to get the database room in-memory database builder. This is what is going to provide me the simulated database from the rooms framework. Pass the context and app database class Java, and then dot allow main thread queries, because it's okay to do it on the test dot build, and that is going to give me the database and then initialize the DAO using the database, that is db.country.DAO. And now we have the setup ready. And once again, we need to have the teardown. So we will write after function teardown, and inside the teardown, you basically close the database. So setup and teardown are done. And once again, we are going to write similar test cases that we had written earlier. So let me just show you what were the earlier test cases. Robolectric test, if you just recall, we had written test cases like insert multiple and read, insert single and read, and replace existing country test. So it's very similar to that. Let me write function insert and read test function run test, and inside this, so first thing I will do is I will create a list of country containing only one value, and then I will insert this into DAO, and after that I need to fetch it from the DAO, and if I assert now, I should have only one value. That's what I am asserting. That's what I am testing, and here I check that whether it is from the left. So that is what the first test looks like. I can run it and show right now, but we will do that all in one go later. So let me just collapse it now and write another test. I will do it very quickly for the sake of time saving. This is the second test, insert multiple and read, where I am creating a list of multiple entries, inserting into the database, and then I am asserting whether 3 entries are there and whether a particular country has appropriate drive side set or not. So that is what I am asserting. Let me collapse this as well and write one more thing, which is replace the existing countries and see whether replacement happens properly or not. So I am inserting with one country, and then once again I am inserting same with a different drive side. The country name is the same, and if I fetch it later and assert that whether the right is available or not, it should be there. So these are the similar test cases that we had written in the Robolectric test case as well, and even in the in-memory. Just that now we are using instrumented RoomDB. So we have these 3 test cases. Now it's time to run. And I clicked on run. This time the difference that you are going to see is it is going to trigger the emulator. This did not happen in the earlier cases where it just simply ran on the JVM. So this takes more time to run than what you were doing earlier, which is using Robolectric or even using in-memory database. But this gives you a very realistic picture of what really happens on the device, because this is actually getting tested on a real database in the device. And that is the reason why, if you want to get a real feel of what is getting tested, then doing instrumented test cases is very, very important. I think test cases ran just now. So you can see that all the 3 test cases passed. Initially it takes more time because it takes time to launch the emulator and everything. If the emulator is already launched, then next time it doesn't take that much of a time. So now let's run this again. It will delete the existing database that might have got created in the device, and once again runs them. So that is the reason why, if you see here, initially it is taking almost around 23 or 24 milliseconds. But once that is done, remaining things run much faster, almost as good as Robolectric or earlier test cases. Now that you have tested database in all 3 ways, we already had some fair understanding of what these 3 different ways of testing would differ in. Let's complete the remaining compare and contrast exercise. When it comes to using Android's APIs, in simple in-memory, we don't use any Android's APIs. It's all being managed through in-memory custom code. Here, the Robolectric provides some shadowed version of RoomDB simulation, but here in case of RoomDB instrumented, it is a proper full Android framework that is under execution. So this is more realistic. And then when it comes to coroutines and live data testing, yes, in simple in-memory also it is fully supported. Robolectric also it is supported, but to make it easy to test, we used instant task executor rule. We pretty much used very similar mechanism in here as well, that is instrumented RoomDB. And then isolation, in case of simple in-memory, it is totally fake because we create our own custom in-memory implementation. But in case of Robolectric, it is JVM isolated but simulated RoomDB. And however, in case of RoomDB instrumented, per test device isolation is needed. That is, once you run the test, if you want to rerun again, then you have to basically delete the database that is there in that particular device when it got set up in the previous run and restart the testing again from the scratch. Otherwise, there is very much a possibility that there will be a cross contamination. And then finally, which one is suited best for what purpose? If you want to do pure Kotlin test cases, then simple in-memory based testing is good enough. If you want some level of simulation of RoomDB and SQLite database, then using Robolectric is very good approach. They are slightly slower than pure Kotlin test cases, but definitely not as slow as instrumented RoomDB test cases. But if you really want to get a feel of all RoomDB features like SQL validation, schema migration, all those things, if you want to test those things, then RoomDB instrumented test case is better approach. With this, we are done with the discussion of testing the database in Android. In the next video, we will get started with something. That brings us to the end of this particular video. Don't forget to like, comment, share the video and subscribe to the channel. Take care. Bye.